Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This is the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again with your host Nick Scopes and the Gregolicious. You know how we do, cause you know we keeping it gangster and silly. Unplugged like a full swung titty. About get jitty, cause you know we down to the nitty and the gritty. And we make shit sound so damn pretty. Yeah, cause this unhinged comedy. And right now you're in the mix. So get ready, cause we about to get it poppin'. And we ain't stopping. Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the Mangina Dialogues.
Hello and welcome to the Mangina Dialogues podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Scopes.
And I'm the little drummer boy, Greg Alprin.
Greg is back fresh off of COVID.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. He was in his nursing home because that's where we just put him in there, and then he got sick, and he's feeling better though. He actually looks very svelte. He looks good. I love it.
20 pounds.
He said he's feeling all right. Our guest today, fun fact, he loves Golden Grams. There's a new retro flavor out. Try that shit out.
Honey's back, baby.
Honey's back. That's what Greg said when he got done with COVID.
Oh, God.
He texted me. He's like, Honey's back. I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. Leave me alone. But our guest today is Eddy Torres. He has the RRBG podcast, which stands for Rock and Roll Beer Guy Podcast. What's up, Eddy? How are you doing out in LA? Everything's open, right? Everyone's running around.
I've been doing 6 sets a night. I mean, it's fucking great.
Yeah, you go to Gavin Newsom's house. He's not wearing a mask. You do private shows.
Yeah, probably. We go to that winery and shit, and we just get drunk. It's great. They run their own winery, so it's good, man. We're all good here.
What a piece of shit he is, huh?
Look, man. I also it's weird. I don't like the lockdown. I don't like the piece of shit politicians. But I'm not comfortable being around people yet. I've gone out a few times. Like I went to the farmers market out by La Brea, and there's too many people there. I was just like, yo, back away a little bit. Come on. I just needed to get some meat. What are you doing to me?
Yeah, I got to tell you, it isn't a joke. I did get sick, and I'm just getting over it. And I got sick in Florida, right? Which I went to.
Of course you did.
Dude, that's what I said. Quick interjection. I love Greg. Greg was so nervous about COVID, and then he got on a plane and went to Florida.
No, dude.
Well,
Granted, it was for family stuff.
Anywhere else, I would be like, okay, but Florida?
Well, no.
That's what I said.
I went with good intentions to help my mom.
He did. It was very nice. Yes.
I could not have been safer. Right. So I stayed in my house I have a 16-year-old son. He was with me. We stayed in the house. We would go out. And when we had to go out, we were incredibly careful. I lathered myself in sanitizer, had
Danny DeVito and It's Always Sunny covered in head to toe hand sanitizer.
I was like a bubble boy, literally I was a bubble boy.
Okay.
And, of course, we went out to eat a handful of times. We were there for Christmas. We went out for Christmas Eve dinner. We went out for Christmas dinner, but to places where there was nobody. We were alone in these restaurants for the most part, thought totally safe. Got tested the day we left Florida. We both tested negative, land home. Next day, I'm sick. My son, not sick. And to this day, my son is not sick. He's tested 3 times negative since I got sick, which is
younger,
insane.
dude. He's got a better immune system than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not 85.
Then my son, who didn't go to Florida, who I saw for maybe 10 minutes when I got home, got sick after I got sick. So, and he's thankfully okay. But yeah, it fucking sucked. But in Florida, they are acting like it doesn't exist.
Oh, spring break, dude. I have to party. I spent way too much time in Florida.
Yeah.
I'm from Jersey, but I ended up moving to Florida when I was 15 because my dad got arrested and shit just got crazy. So we basically fled to Miami.
And New Jersey, actually.
What happened?
It's usually why people move to New Jersey, because they get arrested.
Yeah. No, but I was born there. So they came from Spain and picked Jersey, and then they just did business. Like the way my dad sees it is, I had to do what I had to do to feed the family.
Sure.
And whatever shit he got into, and then he got arrested, and we just like, hey, we're going to Florida now. And then we all went to Florida, and I'm like, all right, we'll be here for a couple years, and then we'll end up back in New Jersey, because that was just a mentality. Like, we're just hiding, you know what I mean? We'll go back. And then they waited and waited and waited. I got through high school, and I had a girlfriend, I had a band, and they're like, all right, we're going back to Jersey. I'm like, nope. Are you kidding? Are you fucking kidding? I already did a life. What are you talking about? So yeah, I spent 25 years, I don't know how long, 22, 25 years in Florida. So
What part?
Miami.
Okay. So where I was in Florida
God
was
bless.
the old people part of Florida. I was in a retirement community outside of Orlando.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was.
I told you, his nursing home. That's his
it's like a nursing home. The way I described it is, it was like a hedonistic old age summer camp.
Oh yeah, it's a bunch of old people fucking.
Cult.
But
I would go into town, like, and everything's a golf cart. So I'm driving around in a golf cart with my kid. We're just kind of looking at shit, staying to ourselves. And there's a center of town which had like live bands every night of the week, and just tons of old people dancing maskless, like nothing is going on in the world. And I asked a few people, and they were like, well, we're all old, right? And if we get sick, we get sick. And if we don't make it, we don't make it.
yeah, they're done. They don't give a shit anymore.
We've lived. I'm 86 years old. I've lived my life. I'm gonna get sick and die of something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna stay in my house.
There's got to be some piece to that too.
Right.
For them.
So, and it was an incredible amount of, like, it looked extremely freeing, but then who's the asshole that gets sick? Me. like I was as careful as you could be. Like, I wore like everything, and then I'm the fucking dickhead that gets on an airplane, goes home, and gets sick.
Yeah, man, that sucks, dude. I'm sorry you got sick. That shit sucks. But the old people thing, I get it, dude. I'm the same way. I've told my family, like, I'm not a vain guy. That I'm not. I don't need. My family's like, when are you gonna have children? I'm like, whenever. I'm not trying to leave a legacy here. This is not.
Right. Man, I have a fucking rock and roll podcast.
This is fine. So I've said it repeatedly. If I get to the age when I can't wipe my own ass, just put me out.
Sure.
Just put me out, dude. I'm good. I don't want someone else reaching into my ass area to scoop out poop.
See,
I'm good.
That's what makes you and Nick different kinds of people. Nick is dying for someone.
I'm not kink shaming. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, not wipe my ass, but like, hey, if anyone's listening, you want to throw a finger in there, it's all good.
I forgot we're not using this microphone, so I'm putting it down.
And Eddie just left.
Yeah. But no, just
he's like, my golden grams are calling. I'm fucking out.
Dude. So yeah, this morning I went to Ralph's, and it's the same. Like, out here in LA, everyone is very, like, it's an aggressive vibe now when you walk out to the supermarket. Everybody's on the defensive. You know what I mean? Oh. Everybody's kind of looking at each other all weird. Like, as we're getting down, we go down the aisle and we stop, and it's like, I'll go to the right. Like, it's fucking freaky shit. And I'm usually stoned out of my mind when I go to Ralph, so it's the worst time. I'm just there looking at it. I'm standing there like, I like this bread, looks good, but what about that one? And excuse me, and they're like, no, and they run away.
What Ralph's do you go to? Do you go to the one that's like over by that's like by that CVS on Santa Monica up in Hollywood?
No, I'm going to one on Wilshire. It's on Wilshire and no, not Wilshire. What am I saying? It's like close to Wilshire and La Brea, somewhere around there. It's on one of those corners. But yeah, it's chaos, dude. Everybody's on the defensive. Well, I'm in the kosher Ralph's. That makes sense.
Oh, that's
cool. There's like a whole half of the supermarket is all kosher stuff.
Oh, I didn't even know they had that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which is good for me because I'm trying to make whatever changes to keep myself alive a little bit longer than I would.
You're shopping in the expensive Ralphs. You may as well shop in Whole Foods.
Yeah, right. Might as well. But hey, they got the beer I want. They got the stuff I need, I guess. The golden grams with the honey.
So let's talk about your show for a little bit.
Sure.
So you've built a show which is largely around rock and roll, but it's not just rock. You cover a lot of stuff: rock, comedy, wrestling, beer.
Yeah. Well, it started as just beer. And like it was supposed to be beer and a musician. That was the original concept. Like the very first episode, like, all right, I got a musician and a brewer, and we're gonna talk shit three-way. And then like 3 episodes in, I realized that brewers aren't very social.
Right.
And when they are, they're very awkward in social situations. And I love them to death. They're great people, but my God, there's just no there's no filter.
They're like hipster scientists.
Yeah, dude. I took one of the brewers out from Cigar City because I used to work in the beer industry. That's kind of where the beer part of the podcast comes from. And I worked at with this, pretty popular, famous brewer, Wayne Wombles is his name. One of the best brewers I've ever met in terms of creating some kind of new thing flavor wise. And the dude, they made a big deal about, hey, let's set up this dinner in Miami, a 6-course meal. We're gonna pair each course with a beer, and we're gonna present Wayne as the guest of honor, and everybody gets to meet Wayne and take pictures with him, and he'll sign autographs and whatnot. I get down there and I find him in a corner with a little notepad. And I'm like, am I talking in the dinner? Is this my dinner? I thought you're the guest. Like, right. I thought you're supposed to have a presentation. He's like, yeah, hold on, man. I just figured out a new way how to dry hop beer. And I'm like, well, do your thing, man. Keep working. I'll fucking entertain the crowd, I guess.
It is true. I used to be, I mean, I guess I still am, like a big craft beer guy, right? And I've talked to a lot of breweries because I go up and down the East Coasts or the Northeast because it's obviously so friggin' popular here now. And I'm like I consider myself like a craft beer guy, but I don't consider myself a craft beer snob, right? So I have a hard time getting in a conversation with other beer guys who want to talk about like the hops and the aroma and where that hop comes from and all. And I'm like, just, do you like this beer or do you not like this beer? Just yes or no. Yeah. Like, that's all I need to know. Like, is it fruity or is it bitter? Like, besides that, I don't need to know the birth, trajectory of these particular hops.
Yeah, so that's why there's been less. That's why there's been less brewers on the show.
Right.
That was the whole point I brought up. It's just they're just not. They can't really communicate just normally. It's all beer, and that's fine. They are artists. That's how I see it. You know what I mean? That they're talking about their world, and I don't want to interrupt that. Like, just do your thing, I guess. I love beer. I made beer. That's so to complete the story of how the first episode happened, it was meeting Adam D from Killswitch. And I met him at the brewery while I was working for them. And, we became instant friends at the brewery. And like a year or two later, I call him up. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. You want to be the first guest? And he's like, yeah, dude, totally. I'm like, great. And I grabbed one of the brewers from Cigar City and Adam, and we did our first episode. We just sat, talk shit, and we made a Killswitch beer together.
Right.
The brewer I had on and Adam, we all made that Alive or Just Brewing beer. And then then from there, it was just like, all right, well, now I guess I need another episode. And I just kept, talking to people that I know or met. And then as I moved out here to Hollywood, I started meeting comedians and hanging out and I started having more comedians on the show. So then it's kind of now become a amalgam of whatever I like,
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool because as I was like ripping through just a lot of the past episodes, it's it's such a great mix of all of it, music. I even saw some wrestlers mixed in there, UFC guys, obviously comedians, and just a ton of great bands. So it's really cool. It's sort of, it's similar to kind of how we are, but we're pretty entrenched just in, really in the comedy world with a few offshoots and other things. But I think that's what makes your show super duper cool, is because there's a lot of flavor to it.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's because I'm Latino. We like spices.
Put adobo on that shit, baby.
A little bit about sazon. That's it, man.
Yeah.
Sazon completa. Yeah, it's been a wild thing, man. Like it's one of those. I don't believe in like shit like The Secret, you know what I mean, or any of that. But I have noticed that a lot of the times when I put my mind to something and I'm like, all right, let's just do it. Like I don't even I try not to overthink it. Let's just put it together.
Right.
And then usually when you act like that, that kind of influences the other person to just be like, okay, let's
Yeah.
fucking do something. You know, that's what people want to see, I think, is that drive or want to do something, I guess.
Yeah. So what do you think makes like your interview style unique to you over, someone else that's listening to another guy interview? Because I saw one of your interviews was with Matt Pinfield, who, to guys that grew up in the MTV era like I did, and through all of those early shows, Matt was a fixture, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a band, coming out, that was an alternative band or a little harder style band, like Matt was the guy you wanted to get interviewed by. Like he was the guy.
The guy's a legend, dude.
Yeah, total legend. So it's
Yeah.
almost like if you were a top 40 band, you'd want Casey Kasem to be your, your show. But if you were not, and at these 120 minutes or whatever, like Matt was the guy, right?
Yeah.
So, and he is an awesome interviewer, right? I always looked up to him as a guy that interviewed people and thought that his interviews always were great because he got into it from the music side, but from the friend side. So it made the interview just seamless and cool.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how do you look at your style?
Well, I got to give a lot of credit to Matt Pinfield himself, dude. That was a big episode for me because I couldn't believe he said yes. That was it. I was just like, wait, what? I just messaged him on Instagram like, hey man, huge fan. You're a major influence on what I do with my life. So if you want to do the show, and he said, yeah. I'm like, what? And I mean, because I guess what makes it unique is that I still try to be humble. I try not to be like, oh yeah, I'm the rock and roll beer guy. What's up? Like I'm just a guy that likes things, and I'm fortunate enough to know a few people. I think I put in my dues too. So like I was in a band for 10 years. I get the scene. I get what musicians go through. I get the process of touring, living on the road, all of that shit that comedians share in common too. Comedians are always on the road, they're touring, it's a very similar thing. And you're on stage, you got a light on you. Same thing with musicians, only there's 4 or 5 of you on. It's like the comedy troupe, I guess, or one of those like improv sets, but is what you would compare it to. But still, like it's a lot of pressure to be, especially me. Like I was the front man in the band. I never wanted to be.
Right.
Like it wasn't something I enjoy. I wasn't that rock star guy trying to make some cool music. And I ended up having to be the front guy and then having to figure out, okay, how do I interact with this crowd to keep them engaged? Like get in their face, yell at them, grab some dude by the shirt. I don't know, fucking run into the crowd. That's what I grew up doing. So then, when the podcasting started coming around, I'm like, all right, I think I could combine these worlds. I think I could do something with all the experiences I've had and all these people I've met to build something.
So I'm going to guess that you were in an emo type band.
Yeah. Don't I look so emo? I had the hair across my eyes. No, it was weird.
It's called My Chemical Romance. You guys
Yeah, dude. I used to put on makeup. Hello.
Oh, that's you, Dashboard Confessional. I knew I recognized you.
I mean, look, we had a couple songs that were, soft, I would call soft songs.
Ballads,
power ballads that, it was weird because we would mix them up in the set. So we would have a few heavy songs and then we'll throw one of those in there. And the crowd gets weirded out because all the girlfriends start paying attention and all the dudes that were moshing kind of just stop.
Right.
And then they're kind of like, the dudes are into it, but it's mostly for the ladies that are there.
Yeah.
And then we go back to screaming in their face, and they start moshing. And you see the girls all confused, like, "What's happening?"
I would love to see like if you start playing a slow song and then guys in the pit they just like look at each other and they just start making out.
We have a lot of that. Like we've had not
like,
just
I'm
making
sorry
out, but
I
like,
hit you.
all the dudes start hugging and like, "Hey man, yeah." They put out lighters and shit. It's like, oh my god.
That's
I've had,
like
yeah,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, like we it got to that point where we had those songs that at the end of the song, the whole crowd would jump up to finish the song with the band, I guess, at one point. It was very, very rowdy shows that we would put on.
That's cool, man.
I don't know what
like that.
I don't know the genre. I mean, we mix it up. There's songs that sound like a punk rock song. There's songs that sound like a Tool song. There's songs that sound like a, whatever. Our influences. We would just write whatever, and we were lucky enough that we got to tour it and sleep on.
What was the name of the band?
Sever was the name of the band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the the most fun times I have had at any type of show, and I used to have a music magazine, so I spent years entrenched in the music business, and I've been to a million different shows, a million bands. I like my music on the harder side, and I was in San Francisco a year or so ago, and there was a band called Brujeria. You know those guys?
Oh yes, yeah.
And I'm like, I'll go see any band if I'm in a city. If there's live music, I'll go. And I knew they were a heavier band. I didn't know much about them. So I show up to this tiny venue, right? Like, so you're laughing. So you know what I walked into. Nick, you must Google these guys right now. Like,
I think
Google
you told me this story, but yeah, keep going.
So like I walk in and it's like one of these metal low, you've been in them. They're like super low ceilings and it's just rough from the second you walk in the door. And these guys are already on stage and it's honestly, it's like I walked into like a Mexican cartel, like trial by fire. It was unbelievable. Like their entire set, they don't say it, every single thing, every word is in Spanish. Right?
What's this band's name again?
Brujeria, or with a J in the middle.
Yeah, and they're all up there. Like their whole shtick is that they're like Mexican drug lords, right? And I'm like, what is going on? Right? Like, and it was unbelievable. But it was so much fun.
Did they have the Trump pinata?
No, it was.
They've done that.
Are they like a Mexican guar?
No, kind of. Gore is a little more costume. Yeah, theatrics. Yeah. Brujeria's got.
They do have some amazing album art, though. Wow, this is cool.
It was so much like their music is obviously very aggressive and rough, but good, right? Like really with like good grooves to it. And one of the girls who was in the band is like a well-known actress.
Jessica Pimentel. She's a homie of mine.
Really? And I was
dude.
What?
You had her on the podcast, right?
Couple times. Yeah, we're friends. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, dude, it's bananas to have the voice that she has. Like when you see her, you don't expect that to come out of that body. It's like that doesn't make any sense. So when you see a big dude with a high pitched voice, you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
it's weird. So, Brujeria is crazy. Other bands that like I used to go see this band called Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah.
They recently they're not around anymore, but. Those shows were pure chaos. Yep. And I mean, I've never been to one Dillinger show where I didn't leave hurt.
Right.
So it was a weird thing to tell people that.
Yeah.
It was normal in my life. I was in a band and they became friends of mine as well. And it was a thing. And I to convince normal people that, hey, look, this is what I enjoy. The singer's blowing fire into the crowd. There's also, they have torn the air ducts from the AC into the audience and there's fiberglass just everywhere. And he's going with fire. I'm like, we're all going to die. That's what's happening tonight. And like, there's just a little bit of a like weird, I know it sounds sick, but there's like a weird beauty in that for me, like this animalistic thing that I can let go of there. I don't, Latinos are known to be fiery, kind of violent people. A lot of them end up being domestic abusers. I think one of the reasons I'm not is because I take it out with music.
Yeah, it's one of the I know that feeling. I got Soulfly were those shows that did it for me, right?
Yeah, dude.
And I was at one show and I had this magazine, so I was in the photo pit actually taking pictures of the band, right? And they come out on stage, and it was during Back to the Primitive, right? So that had just come out, right? And that song, if that song can't get someone amped up, there's no song ever written that will, right? Yeah. So they come out, they started their set with that song, which was like an amazing way to start a set. Like you're starting off as hot as you possibly could. The entire crowd, like 1,000 people, just all bounced at the exact same time and pushed the barriers, right? Which you would think are not movable, completely up to the stage, right? So I don't know how I saw it happen behind me, but I happened to just move out of the way before, like as it happened, and I stood to the side. I got to the side of the stage, and it didn't like hit me. But all the photographers wound up having to duck under the stage, or they honestly were about to get crushed. And they didn't stop the show. Somehow the security guards like wedged themselves in and pushed these barriers back. But It was insane. Like I honestly, at that point, I was like, "Holy shit, someone's dying in this show today." It would have been worth it because it was salty.
There's a little bit of that like human beauty when you're in that situation. It makes you fear for your life, which a lot of people don't get often.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people are living comfortably and they take advantage of it. They don't even realize it. You're home on, you have AC, or maybe you don't have AC, but you're not fucking dying.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're not really most of the time in a life-threatening situation. And sometimes you need that to build character, to build understanding of like how to react in a situation like that. Because what happens, look at what happened at the Capitol.
Right. I mean, I luckily never got hurt at the show ever, but have been very close multiple times.
I always avoid the pit. I avoid the pit. I love watching. I truly enjoy, like you said, there is a beauty to it. Like, because I do stand-up comedy, people are like, we're surprised. So it was 420 show, last April 2019, Terror from LA was at the College Theater in New Haven. Obituary and then Hatebreed was the headliner.
Ooh, that's a lot of moshing.
Yeah, it was wild. But like the moshing was like aggressive and like whatever. And I'm watching my buddy Wes, who's a nut, and he's the one who got me into this music. We've been friends since we were 14. And he's moshing. He's like 6'3", he's like 280. He's a cop. He's pretty big. And he's like, whatever, is moshing. And there's a guy who probably outweighs him by 100 pounds who he's like moshing with and like starts to fall. And my buddy Wes like just catches him just in time and picks him back up. And they like shook hands and then just kept moshing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet.
There is a brotherhood or some kind of weird thing there. It's like a love when you're in the pit. Sometimes people get out of line.
Yeah.
And when you have a few of your brothers there with you, it's a weird telepathic communication that happens when like it's happened to me in Florida. They used to have these giant concerts that were all day festivals from the radio station. And it was, Rob Zombie and Godsmack and Korn and all these big radio bands. But I would just go for the fun of just being in the crowd, just enjoying the live ambiance and whatnot, and I would just go mosh in everybody's pit no matter who was playing, just to be part of that. And we started even dressing up to these fucking things. We would all wear overalls so we could find each other in the fucking crowd. And then like it was such a weird fucking thing that I became a part of. Like we would just go and like mosh safely with people, and then when we would see someone go out of line, we would go in there and kick their ass. If we see some dude ninja kicking a little girl, he's going down. Like that's what's happening. So
there was at that same show, Jamie Josta stopped. I think it was like in between songs. Someone he could see was getting fucked up in the crowd, and he like stopped and was like, "Hey, like you got to help that guy." He's like, "We can't be doing this shit here." Blah blah blah, and like stopped what he was doing. And when they came out, people went fucking nuts. Like that was like everyone was moshing the whole time and doing their thing, but when they came out, dude, I was standing next to my buddy. And someone jumped off of something, hit my buddy in the back, and his nose just started bleeding immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, fuck.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, it's a weird thing, and it's really one of the things that fascinated me with music and why I dedicate so much of my time with it. Like just with the podcast, trying to talk to as many musicians as possible that I enjoy, just to get to know them, get to how they got to that point that they're creating this music, because there is a crazy magical force with music that causes a crowd to do something like that. You know what I mean? Like they're not consciously thinking at that moment. They get hit with that frequency of music and their body just goes like it triggers this like weird animalistic nature in people. I think it's fascinating and something that should be studied a little bit more than just enjoying. Like you can convince people to do things with music if you have the right message in your music. You know what I mean? It's like brainwashing, but through sound. It's weird.
Yeah. Every time I see Greg, I play Marvin Gaye, "Let's Get It On."
Trying to get him in the mood.
Yeah, it hasn't worked, but I'm gonna keep. Maybe I'll try Hatebreed.
Try Hatebreed.
It's not my song. It's not getting it going.
About End of Heartache.
Yeah,
Soulfly.
Definitely some Slipknot, maybe. That, which, by the way, like I I've gone to a ton of shows like you, and I mean, a lot of hardcore shows and everything in between. And really, I never ever felt in danger in a pit. I mean, yes, certainly, like, you got to be cautious and conscious of your surroundings, but I never really felt like I was going to have harm done to me. One, because I'm a little bit of a bigger guy, so it's not that easy to knock me around. But obviously, anything can happen. The one time I said to myself, "Holy shit!" Like, this is a little weird. Like, I could see something happening, which I don't even know why, because it never had happened before. But was it a Slipknot show? Have you ever been like right up front when those guys come onto stage, and the mayhem that ensues once that shit happens?
You start getting crushed
Like,
immediately, out of breath.
again, I was in the photo pit, so I was protected. Like, there was not a real crowd. I wasn't in the crowd. I was in front of the crowd. And just when those guys came onto stage, the music and all the shit that surrounds Slipknot, guys banging on kegs, and I was like, if I was ever gonna get hurt at a show, it's gonna be now.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time. Like, it's gonna be now, because your senses are so overwhelmed by everything that just has gone. You know, the lights come down, they come out. It's fucking mayhem.
The roar of the crowd.
Yeah, you look back and you're
Everybody goes nuts when the lights go out.
and I was like, oh, this is it. This is where it lays to rest. But if it's going to be any place, it should be at a Slipknot show. But nothing happened. It was
yeah, it's such a weird. It's weird to me that not more people are into it. Like, metal is considered kind of niche. Like, it's not the popular music. It's sometimes, like, Slipknot will break through. Like, Slipknot had album of the year or whatever it was, #1 Billboard. Great. That's great. That's huge for metal.
Absolutely.
Whether you like them or not, whether you think they've gone soft and pop or whatever because they're making more money now, you're wrong. It's still crazy. But yeah, I love music, dude, and it's been my #1 passion, and that's why when I started the show, that's what I wanted it to be. But then I started getting older and realizing that there's way more stuff, like comedy. I've always been a fan of comedy, but the last 2 or 3 years I've become obsessed with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the right time too. You know, comedy right now is having.
Right now is the best time to be.
It really is. Like, I've been a comedy fan. I mean, obviously not for live comedy right now, but I've been a comedy fan my entire life, right? And I grew up watching, like, the 80s comedy stuff on HBO, right? The Young Comedian Specials and Half Hour Comedy Hour, and, you know, the stuff that was on VH1, you know, when they went through their comedy stuff. And, you know, that was kind of a cool time period with the comic relief, you know, specials that they did. Like, that was a cool time. And then there was such a downtime, right? Which is,
I remember,
you know, everyone knows how the Comedy Store went through tons of struggles, and comedy, you know, was just not it for a long time. And then the last few years, it's been everything. You know, your top podcasts, comedy podcasts, right? The top shows on Netflix, comedy shows, right? So really, this is the golden era of the last couple of decades in comedy.
You know why it is? Because these are the darkest times.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
In the darkest times, we need comedy. Like, music's good, but, like, we need somebody to make us feel better, somebody to make us laugh. Because otherwise, like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? So I think that's why there's been such a huge boom in comedy, and more people are getting into the fact that a lot of comedians have become successful and are making a lot of money. Is also very appealing for certain people. But that's the wrong reason to get into it. You know, that's the same. That's what happens in music all the time. Dudes are like, I want to be a rock star so I can be a millionaire. It's like, that's not how that works.
That's certainly not these days.
No, that's not how that works.
That's a very small percentage of rock stars that make it to there. But
it takes a long time.
Very long time. Unless you're like Motley Crue and you're on world tour the next year, and those dudes, it was wild. Anyway, I have a question. So this is my question regarding, like you said, metal isn't really mainstream, right? But there's a couple bands that break through, and as a musician, like, I think like Hatebreed has definitely broken through. They have a certain way about I would say Kill Switch, because I've played those bands for friends of mine who are not metal fans, and like, this is good. I'm like, yeah, no, it is. And like Slipknot, I guess my question is, like, what makes them break through like that? Like, what's the reason, you think?
It's so bands like Kill Switch and Hatebreed, although they have made it, they are what I would consider they've made it. They're still not like they're not on the like radio. Like Slipknot broke through. Like
That's
they
what I
were
mean. Like that's what I should have
all the
said
way
was
past that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I think it has to do with presenting a packaged product that you can resell. And it sucks, but it's a very rough line for artists to go from I'm doing this because I love music to how can I make money off of it. Like it gets tainted sometimes when your focus is the money and not the art. But when you've been doing it for so long, like a band like Slipknot, they've been doing it for many years and they've been refining their presentation. The band's got costumes now where like that are way more intricate than the original
Sure.
masks that they would wear. And they've got full on ensembles now. It's not just the jumpsuit and a mask. It's, they're characters. So there you go. Now you can sell characters. Now you got action figures and you got Pop Funko vinyl figures and you've got costumes for Halloween. Each individual mask plus a costume. Like, yeah, it's money. How can you turn what you love into a package that you can sell? And that's how they make it to that point, I think. And it takes a little bit of that selling out that people say all the time. Oh, you sold out. Oh, fine, bro. I'm trying to make a living. I don't want to work at an office.
Yeah,
I would say like, go ahead.
I just think that it's an interesting time music wise, right? Especially for the more harder music, right? Because when you look at the tours over the last few years that are, these big tours, I look at them as they're really all old nostalgia tours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point very soon, that's going to go away. Kiss cannot tour that much longer. Def Leppard, Motley Crue, all these classic bands that go out on these big summer tours that are kind of keeping, the metal flag alive are not going to do it that much longer. And then you don't have a whole lot of shit behind them, right? Because even if you look at the Hatebreeds, Killswitch, Cold Chamber, just go down the list, right? There's not a lot of stuff behind that either that's going to, really break through, right? Certainly there's tons of smaller bands that are killing it as far as music goes. But as far as popularity goes, there's just, there's not a lot there.
Unfortunately, it all comes down to money,
right?
And labels.
Yeah,
and
sure.
and the labels now it's different than it used to be. Obviously, nobody's giving out these paychecks to these rock stars anymore. They are, however, it's they are picking projects that they put money behind for marketing.
Sure.
And so that they're being played on Sirius XM and they're Liquid Metal and Octane, and you got ads in magazines, and you've got it's all that's what it's getting one of those dudes to take interest in your product. And
sure,
a lot of artists that I believe are doing something worth paying attention to don't get that attention because people they want to be able to use it and mold it. So when they see that you've got your own thing going, they're like, well, I can't, you know what I mean? Like I can't interfere with that.
Yeah.
They're not going to let me even. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like the band Ghost, for example, that band was created to create a piece of art, but I think also with the idea of I can sell this. This is merchandise. This is
absolutely.
T-shirts and toys and whatnot. So I don't know. It's weird. To me, there's plenty of bands I think like Sleep Token, even like rap artists like Clipping. They're doing things that are very unique and artistic and have the potential to be that big. But we got to figure out a way to help these bands kind of get a spotlight. And that's one of the things I was hoping to do with my show. I'm like, if enough people listen and I keep pumping shit out, maybe people start like, okay, I trust his opinion. Maybe I'll check out that band,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, this is going to sound insane, but it's actually part of my real world is I do, think that's part of what Hot Topic as a retail chain, what made them strong from, say 10 years ago, right? They were that retailer that the teens would go to that was kind of like their radio station, right? So if you walked into Hot Topic and you saw, a My Chemical Romance t-shirt on the wall and you heard My Chem in the store and all these other bands that happened to be popular at the time, whatever they might have been, that's just helps you generate an audience, right? So they may start playing bands before they sell a T-shirt a year in advance, right? They'll play music that may not show up in their store on the T-shirt wall for 18 months, but it's this ground that allows them to test with all these kids who come in to see what they like, and then not only what they like, tell them what they like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then a year and a half later, they're selling them that T-shirt. That they built that audience the way a radio station used to build an audience.
Something happened with Hot Topics, like ownership or something, where there was a big change with them.
Yeah.
I remember there was, at one point they were promoting a lot of, like my band played at a Hot Topic. You know what I mean? And it felt like a big middle finger thing to me, because I grew up hating like corporations and all that bullshit. So when I saw Hot Topic, I'm like, fuck that. But then they offered us to play a show there, and I'm like, yeah, let's fucking play there. And then we packed it out. The whole store, like the store was getting upset because they were like, oh, there's people moshing. I'm like, it's a show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You invited us, remember?
You did no research. That's what happened. You just said, yeah, go ahead, play. You should have looked into it. They did that with here's a clip if you want a fun clip to watch on YouTube. Type Dillinger Escape Plan Virgin Megastore. Dillinger Escape Plan got booked to play a Virgin Megastore in New York. And I guarantee you whoever booked them did not look up what was going to happen.
Right.
You look at this video and there's packed audience. There's escalators.
Yeah, the Midtown store. Yeah.
And dude, the second they start, Greg runs off stage full speed over like 6 or 7 heads. And just chaos, the fucking everybody flying around. And I mean, I guarantee you nobody at that Virgin was expecting that.
And that was a big store. Like I used to go to that store all the time.
Yeah, dude.
Right down the street from my office. Anyway, man, this was awesome. We're going to have to do this on a regular basis. We could talk shop nonstop for hours.
Yeah, man, we only talked about music. I got a lot of things: MMA, wrestling, and comics, video games, whatever you want to talk about.
Let's talk about Nick. Nick, what can we talk about you, buddy?
What do you want to know?
I don't know. What are you wearing?
Gym clothes. Just got out of the gym, so I got some sweat on here. Looks good.
Nice.
Smells good.
$7 t-shirt. Yeah. Oh yeah, I smell fucking horrible right now.
I haven't smelled anything in 10 days.
Oh my God, COVID.
Like this morning, I was like, maybe I'll smell something today. Nothing.
That sucks, dude. That alone is enough for me to say no thanks to that virus.
Yeah.
Like
it's honestly, for me, and I know this is, to some people who are going to hear this, like not the right thing to say, but for me, that has been the worst part. Like not being able to smell or taste anything is really tough. It sucks. Like until that's gone, you don't realize how hard that is to deal with. Like not being able to smell anything. Like I could go 12 days now, not shower, and have no idea. Like no idea. Like none. Like
thanks, thanks, Biden. It's all your fault.
Well,
dude.
I mean, I sat the first 6 days. I sat in bed and did nothing, and I'm like, I didn't shower, did nothing. I'm like, how bad do I smell right now? And I had no idea. The answer was no fucking clue.
And you were isolated, so
isolated.
You don't live with. You have family that you live with.
Yeah, but nobody came near me. So I'm locked in a bedroom with the windows open. So like it's keeping itself aired, but I have no idea. And I would be like, do I smell? No, I'm good. Right? Like, I'd be like, I'm perfect. I could go out into the world.
It's all about perception.
Exactly. I kept texting Greg's wife and I was like, hey, you should probably take him to the vet and have him put down. I think this is it for him. And she wouldn't do it. She still likes him. So that's annoying. But
it's funny. I sent Nick, I hope I sent it to Nick. I might have been in the throes of just brain fog. One night I wrote out all like the important information that, like Nick would need to know in the event I did not pull through. And I'm like, and I gave him my passcode to my computer. And I'm like, here's this information. This is who you need to know about the podcast. And here's the code to my computer. Don't give this to my wife under any. I was like, she cannot go into my computer. But if something happens to me, open up my computer. There's a file on the desktop for her. Let her get it, and then shut my computer and throw it away.
There's a file on Greg's computer that just says hot black guys, and it's just pictures of hot. It's wild.
My old folder to hide porn in was prawn. Like I was so clever.
Oh my God.
They caught that one real quick. I was like, fuck it.
Should have put prom. Like, oh, these prom photos?
Oh, let's see his prom photos.
Yeah.
What did Eddie do at prom? No.
Dude, I fucked up my little brother when he was like 6 watching hentai. I was at the mom's house.
No.
I was at my mom's house. My friend sent me this fucking Urotsuki Doji, it's called. It's some weird like demon hentai porn thing. And it's not like I get off on it. I was just like, this is ridiculous. I put it on, and my little brother walks. He's like, I'm like, oh shit.
Fuck, sorry.
Oops, sorry. That's gonna scar you for life. Awesome.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Mangina Dialogues.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for chilling.
Thanks for coming on.
Hope I made sense. I was, just rambling for a while.
That's all good. We hardly ever make sense. So you made perfect sense for us, and this was great. Love talking music. We could do this, and we should on a more often basis.
Sure, brother.
All
Anytime.
right, brother, hold on.